Hello, everyone.
Hi.
I'm not going to do that thing where, I can't hear you. I'm not doing that. What I will say is thank you so much for coming to the Indivisible Texas Statewide Senate U.S. Candidate Forum. It's amazing to see all of you here tonight. There are questions that will be asked tonight that have been picked over and submitted by Indivisibles all across the state of Texas. So it's an opportunity to see what the 7 candidates who have agreed to come tonight. And thank you so much for all of you coming. I really appreciate it. Have to say about the issues that matter most to Indivisibles. And we really, really, really appreciate that. A few things before we get started. First of all, a second thank you to all of the candidates. We can't have a forum without candidates, so thank you so much. Secondly, and maybe most importantly, or even more importantly, thank you so much to all of you for attending, because we definitely can't have a forum that means anything without, an audience. So I really appreciate that, and this is an extremely important time to learn about the things that we're going to learn about tonight. If you want to get involved in Indivisible Houston, the fastest way is to go to our website at indivisiblehouston.org. There you can learn about all the different issues that we're working on and all the different fights that we're picking up. We've been at it now for roughly 3 years, pushing back on the still got a little more work to do, from what I can see, but we're going to keep it up. You can also share the stream of tonight's forum out to your friends. It is on the Indivisible Houston Facebook page. If you are tweeting or Facebooking or Instagramming or book posting or whatever network is your preference, whatever it might be, then you can use the hashtag INDTXForum, kind of like Indivisible Texas Forum, INDTXForum. So if you want to take pictures and share them out to people and things like that, that's going to be the hashtag that's going to make it easy to index and easy to find. Also, thank you so much to the Indivisible Houston team and the others who are right now doing all the different things that you don't see front and center to make this happen and make the other things happen. I'm so grateful for them, and I really appreciate them. Let's see, is there anything else you need to do?
Well, you didn't tell him what your name was or what my name was.
That's true. I'm Daniel Cohen, Chair of Indivisible Houston. Oh, thank you to Lily Grove Baptist Church. That's another thing as well. And President Nisha Rain.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much for coming out. We really, really appreciate it. I also want to thank Indivisible National and Indivisible Katie Huddle, where's Jan, and our other Indivisible Katie Huddle ladies for helping us put this on tonight. I think that's it. I think we're going to get started. Indivisible TX Ledge as well. There is a Facebook page if you are interested in joining either Indivisible Houston, which is Indivisible Houston, Indivisible Texas Ledge, which is basically focused on work and flipping the Texas Ledge as well. Just either Facebook or Google us, and there's an easy way for you to get involved. So I think that's it. Oh, and we are also taking audience questions, so if you didn't have a chance to write down a question that you might have for one of the candidates, right back there, you can just get a piece of note paper and jot down a question, and we'll see if we can make it to the audience question and answer section. Cool. So I think we're ready to get started. Okay. So I'd like to bring up our moderator, Patrick Zetek from Texas Tribune. He's a political reporter. I'm sure most of you guys follow him on Twitter. We are so honored to have him with us tonight. Did you come from Austin?
I did. Yeah.
Okay, so he drove all the way from Austin in the rain. So we appreciate that, from braving the Austin rain and traffic and the Houston traffic to get here tonight. So we really appreciate him for being with us tonight. So we're getting started.
Let's do this.
All right, thank you all for being here. As they said, my name is Patrick Svitek. I am the primary political correspondent for the Texas Tribune. I'd like to introduce our candidates that we have joining us here tonight. If you can just wave, or you don't have to stand up, but as I say your name, make it known who you are. We have Daniel Foster, who's a teacher. We have former Congressman Chris Bell. We have political organizer Christina Zinzun Ramirez. We have Dallas State Senator Royce West. We have activist Seema Hernandez. We have Houston City Councilwoman Amanda Edwards. And we have the newest entrant in the race, I believe, Annie Garcia. So thank you all for being here tonight. Just some quick housekeeping. As they mentioned, we'll do moderator questions and then audience questions. We'll have 45 minutes roughly for the moderated part of it, and then we'll have about 20 minutes for the audience questions. And also, as they alluded to, the moderator questions are based on questions that were submitted by Indivisible members across the state, issues that were most common that they submitted. And so hopefully we'll get to a pretty good blend of those issues and those topics. And if not, you can ask about it in the audience section. I'd like to remind both the candidates and then the audience members afterwards to make sure you keep your questions and answers short and sweet so we can get to as many of you as possible. Don't believe we have a hard timekeeper anywhere, but I'm going to be keeping track. And please try to keep all your answers well under 2 minutes. After about a minute, I'll probably be looking in your direction, and we'll try to, again, get to everything that we can. So thank you again, everyone, for coming out. Thank you for the candidates for being here. And let's get started. Again, these questions are based on issues that Indivisible members across the state raised. One of the things that was most common was climate change. And the kind of line of questioning that I saw from members was they wanted to know whether candidates support something like a Green New Deal to deal with climate change, something that would bring carbon by 2050 while investing in those communities that are most affected by climate change, often communities of color. So I will start with Chris, and we'll make sure to alternate with starting candidates going forward. So then the next starting candidate, Jack. Make sense?
Well, I think it's probably the most important issue that we face, and especially when you talk to young people. They're tremendously worried about what their future is going to hold because of climate change. And I think it's rather sad that we've had a climate denier as a United States Senator. John Cornyn wanted to put his head in the sand and pretend that science wasn't real at a time when Texas could have been leading the way. And now it's high time that we get rid of him and have folks that have seen firsthand what has been happening. And when you leave your Myron home with 7 feet of water in it for the last time, you really don't have to be convinced that there's such a thing as climate change. You see the fires in California, you see the storms all across the United States. We know it's real, and even people in the oil and gas industry now know that it's real. And so we've got to get very serious about lowering the emissions, and I think we can do that. We're perfectly positioned here in the state of Texas because of our renewable resources to start moving in that direction, and also working with the fossil fuel industry to reduce emissions. One of the biggest mistakes that Donald Trump has made is lifting the regulations from the oil and gas industry that were put in place during the Obama administration. They were having a very positive effect, and now obviously they were lifted and we're going the opposite direction. But it's time to get very serious about climate change.
First of all, let me apologize. My voice is kind of raspy today. I have a cold, but the bottom line is we have issues with chemicals, we have issues with cement, we have issues with CO2, we have, but what we can do is invest in the people to fix this problem. I mean, I have the excitement return that I'll be talking about later, but the bottom line is that homeowners and property owners need to invest in the people for skilled trades. That's what's going to get us out of this problem. It's welders, plumbers, electricians, wind turbine technologists, solar panel specialists, all that kind of stuff. We can invest in people to do that. And on top of that, reward others for putting money into people. Like in South Carolina, there's no reason why people cannot go to school. We need all the manpower that we can get. And we'll all benefit from that. Don't forget, all we go is to lower taxes for everybody. That means everybody has to work. They have to do something. Thank
Good evening. With Houston being home to me and being home also to, in the last 5 years, 500-year storm events, I don't think you have to convince many people here that climate change is something that we urgently need to address. The challenge has been the last several years, or a few years in the Trump administration, we have been reversing course in some critical headway that was being made under the Obama administration. Namely, things like emission standards. We were moving in the right direction in terms of emission standards. We've now disconnected from the Paris Agreement, which I think is completely inconsistent with us moving in the direction of truly trying to create an environment that is contemplating having a community in the future. We have to be very serious and good stewards of the community that we live in. And in order to do that, that includes a paradigm in which we are implementing strategies, policies, and then making sure that the communities that are impacted by various elements that might be contaminants, for example, that we are making sure that there are regulatory paradigms that are fair and equitable so that all communities, whether you are of high socioeconomic status or not, have access to clean, healthy air, water to drink, and so many other elements that I think we often take for granted. And so this issue is critically important. I think we have to get very serious about making sure that we have a community, not just for today, but a community for tomorrow, and that our kids and our children's children will also be able to partake in clean air and clean water in our communities.
Hi, I'm Becky. I'd like to take just a second to introduce myself because I'm kind of the late horse in this race. My name is Amy Garcia. I was raised in Georgetown, Texas, and I first came to Houston to attend Rice University. I went on to get my JD at the University of Texas School of Law, and I spent most of my life in Texas. También yo viví por unos 2 años en Ecuador y unos 4 más en España. Und ich habe auch in Deutschland für 2 Jahre gewohnt. Only with a Texas public school education can I ask for your vote in Spanish, English, and German. I am a small business owner, I am an attorney, and I'm the founder of a nonprofit organization. And turning to climate change, I want my personal experience. I restore homes here in the 3rd Ward. That's my business. And so I look for pyramid houses, typically built before the 1940s. And I have to take special consideration to think about if this house is going to be standing here in 10 years or in 20 years, because here right on the bayou. I have another property down in Galveston that I restored, and I had to really pay attention to what floodplain it was in. So this is something that isn't 10 years out. It's happening right now. And we are on a very, very short time on it, and it is a very serious problem. With regards to the Green New Deal, I think it's great. Going back to my experience in Germany, when I was living in Germany, it was like in the late 1990s, and the wall had come down about like 10 years before. And there was this huge conversation going around about between East Germany and West Germany, because East Germany stagnated under the USSR, whereas West Germany had kept on progressing. And when it came to reunification, there was a big battle about where they were going to put money, because East Germany was going to leapfrog West Germany. And we're kind of in that position now. We have put so little money in our infrastructure that we actually have an opportunity now, that we can reinvent our economy. So I want to look at the 22nd century economy and figure out, reverse engineer it, and figure out how we get there. And the reason that I like the Green New Deal is because it thinks big. And it was actually created with someone named Mariana Mazzucato. And she's a brilliant economist, and she actually has figured out a way to marry entrepreneurism with government spending. And so I think it's a great idea. I'm so excited that we're having these kinds of conversations within our party. Thank you.
And just a note too, I know we skipped over opening statements. We'll have closing. Appreciate the introduction, of course. We'll have closing statements so people can talk more generally.
How is everyone? Can y'all hear me? Yes. Okay. So I can say without a shadow of a doubt I do support the Green New Deal. Although it started and being that I am a Fenton community resident that lives right up alongside the petrochemical industry and has children who go to school on the other side of Shell Oil, to me is a serious issue that must be addressed. It's a ticking time bomb. I believe that we should end the subsidies for the fossil fuel industry. It's something that I strongly support and I will strongly do going forward as Senator of Texas. And I have been leading on the environmental justice issues in the state of Texas since the 2018 election, which I was the U.S. Senate candidate then as well. And I was the first candidate to ever sign the No Fossil Fuel Pledge in the U.S. Senate race last year. And I signed it again the first time this year, leading the charge on environmental justice. So being that I am a community resident alongside the fossil fuel industry, it has been my experience that the boomtown that John Cornyn refers to is not the one that I'm experiencing every day. So I invite John Cornyn to come and be my neighbor. Come and live where I live and experience what we do. Come and breathe in our air, since you are so proudly deregulating the entire state of Texas to allow for the fossil fuel industry to take hold of our future and destroying it at the same time, all for profit. We must end the deregulation of not just our states, but also ensure that everyone is covered with Medicare for all, to ensure that these cancer clusters are no longer expanding exponentially to proliferate our economy for more fossil fuel interests. And doing so, we must also definitely end the wars, because that is exacerbating the climate crisis around the world, which is causing this mass migration of people coming to our borders because it's no longer sustainable for them to live where they're at, because our country is destroying, our government is destroying it, essentially unlivable. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Cristina Sensun Ramirez, and I think as Texans that we don't run away from big problems, that we tackle them head on, and that's what I think about climate change. Now, I support the Green New Deal, and you will hear from John Cornyn that he doesn't support the Green New Deal because he thinks it's too expensive. Now, what he doesn't calculate is the cost, the catastrophic cost of doing nothing, economically, environmentally, the human cost and suffering of doing nothing. So, I know that John Cornyn doesn't support the Green New Deal, but that doesn't surprise me. My guess is he probably hasn't read it, like he didn't read nearly 20 years of climate science reports in the Senate because he just realized climate change is real a few months ago. But if you read the Green New Deal and why I support it, not just because 81% of Democrats do, but if you read it, it simply states that we are going to rise to the ambition and scale necessary to tackle climate change, and that we're not going to leave any oil and gas worker behind. Well, that's critically important for Texas. The oil and gas industry is not monolithic. So we need to make sure that companies have the resources, the investment, and the national scale and effort to transition. But we also need to say to the companies that want to hoodwink the American public, that want to lie to us about the costs and the reality of climate change, that if they want to cling to the past, we will leave them behind. The last thing I want to say in climate change is that we have a real opportunity. Just a few weeks back, I was visiting the Sunnyside landfill here in Houston. That landfill is now being converted to become the largest urban solar farm in Texas. It's going to provide clean energy for 12,000 local residents that were underwater under Hurricane Harvey. That's just in one city. Imagine if we had the focus of a state, a nation, on climate change. We would be creating millions of good green jobs and leaving a healthy planet for our children. So that is why I support the Green New Deal, because it's basic common sense, and Texas should be at the forefront of it.
My name is Royce West. I'm a state senator here in Texas from the Dallas area. And when you begin to think about environmental justice issues, I've been working on environmental justice issues for a long time. I support the aspirational goals. How do we deal with it? All of us agree that climate change is a problem. This is how we need to deal with it. We first of all have to recognize that the industry has to be a part of the problem, part of the solution. There's a problem, we've got to be a part of the solution also. And so we've got to make certain, number one, that we elect a pro-climate change president. But that makes sense, right? And then we've got to make certain that the EPA administrator is pro-climate change, right? And the reason we do that is because that EPA administrator, just like the one Trump fired because of some shenanigans during the first part of this term, is the person that puts in place the regulations and takes those regulations out. And so we've got to have that infrastructure in place. In addition, there's a bill that is working its way through Congress, H.R. 763, carbon dividend, I think it's Carbon Dividend Act. And the reality is it's a group of citizens, climate lobbyists, it's about 400 chapters across this country that are working on that bill. And when you begin to look at the group that's involved in that, you have free enterprise involved, you have environmentalists involved, you have academicians involved, all types of experts. They're looking at exactly what we need to do. And the recommendation is to have a carbon emission status based on the content of the greenhouse gases that are being emitted from the different pollutants within our environment. And so the point I'm making is this. In the Senate, there is now a group of Democrats and Republicans, people know, that are beginning to work on this in the Senate for the first time. And so I think that we are beginning to have more and more conversations about it, more and more meaningful conversations about it. But in order to get something done, we're going to have to make certain that we have the industry involved, and we have, obviously, us as advocates involved, making certain that everyone's at the table and coming with the best solution problem, the best solution possible in order to ameliorate this particular issue. Now, let me close by saying this. Here in the Gulf Coast region, we know that the sea levels are rising. Guess what's down the street from here? The Gulf Coast. All right? And 6% of the land mass here in the Gulf Coast, 25% of the residents of the state of Texas are right here. And so if we have a catastrophic incident here, guess what happens? Our economy is destroyed. We have a lot of loss of life and everything else. So it behooves us in the state of Texas to make certain that we have a pro-climate change senator working with a pro-climate change president in order to get things done.
Thank you, Senator West. Another topic that came up a lot from Indivisible members was fighting gun violence. I'll ask one straightforward question, with a show of hands, and then we can get into a little more details on it. Does everyone here support a ban on assault weapons as you understand them? A ban on assault weapons? Okay, so I think, Jack, you're the one who didn't raise your hand, and we were going to start with you anyway, so I'll ask you, why did you support that, and what are some of the other proposals you may support to address that?
Well, I don't support that. First of all, I'm from rural Canada, 60 miles east of here. And everybody has shotguns, everybody has handguns. I'm not willing to take that away from them. Yes, I am a Democrat, but I love my guns, just like everybody else down there in my part, the country. But I am pro-fingerprint technology. Let's put that on every weapon made so we can, combat that. So if somebody get a gun that they didn't purchase and try to fire, you can't do it. Why? Because your fingerprint doesn't match, And so I much rather go that route. And besides that, I think everybody knows whoever's up here that when the candidates, they're going to be facing a Republican. And you know the deal on that. They're going to be talking about ban this, ban that. That's what Democrats are about. And not all Democrats are about that. Like I said, I'm for fingerprint technology. And it's some deep background check. But that's as far as it's going to have to go. The Second Amendment, we can regulate those manufacturers.
Thanks, Jack.
That was fun.
30. We'll let you respond once we get to it. We're going to work our way down and proceeding. We'll stagger the order. Sorry, Councilman Edwards. So you raised your hand. What other proposals do you support? Do you support anything that goes farther than a assault weapon?
So I think just to frame the issue, since many of us have been even running in this race, there have been 2 mass shootings in the state of Texas in which John Cornyn has responded. The issue is complex. Well, I have news. It's important that we as policymakers have an ability to lead with courage and not just be beholden to the NRA. I believe John Cornyn has an A+ rating with the NRA. And while I may have made some good grades in my life, an A+ rating from the NRA is not going to be one of them. We have to be very serious about preserving and saving lives. We have to make sure that we not only do some of the simplest of things like universal background checks, but looking at questions like the boyfriend loopholes and the red flag policies and a variety of other things that are advocated by Moms Demand and then many other advocacy groups and individuals across this nation that are simply pleading for our leaders to be serious about curtailing the impacts of gun violence. Now, gun violence comes in many shapes and sizes. It's not just mass killings. It's not just at grocery stores. It's not just in schools. Sadly, these are things that have been taking place over time in homes and in a variety of contexts, even with regard to suicide. We have to be serious about doing our part, restricting the improper distribution of guns, making sure that those that have guns own them safely and are properly trained. And that goes across a wide spectrum, including our law enforcement community. Proper training among everyone who has a gun is critically important as well.
Thank you very much. And I don't know if I saw you, did you raise your hand?
I did.
Okay.
I absolutely
So
did.
same question that you that I posed to Councilmember Edwards.
Right. So I mentioned earlier, and it was in Spanish, admittedly, and German, but I lived overseas. And I want to be very clear that what is happening in the United States is not normal. We are outliers. In 1 week, we have more deaths by guns in this country than, pick a country, Japan, South Korea, Australia, France, Spain. We are an epidemic. And we are trading our kids' security, our own security, for what? The right to bear arms. Well, guess what? There's something in the founding document of this country, and it says that each of us has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And I'm tired of framing this question about are we going to take away assault weapons? Yes, we're going to take away assault weapons. And you know what else? We're going to get smart, because we are going to go and we're going to stop protecting gun manufacturers from lawsuits. And then we're going to go and make gun owners carry liability insurance. What do you think is going to happen when you have insurance companies getting involved in this and assessing risk? Finally, we're going to stop letting credit card companies finance the purchase of these guns. 60% of these guns are bought on credit cards. We have alerts when someone takes our credit card. We have alerts when people start buying multiple guns. But this is a crisis situation. Our kids should not be raised in the country. I have 3 kids sitting here. I should not have to worry about my kids having a live shooter situation in their school. We should be upset. We should be upset by this, and I am.
Thank you very much. Steve?
I absolutely believe in the banning of assault weapons. There was a time when the NRA was more concerned about gun safety and training than ever before, and now it's just more concerned with the proliferation of gun sales and gun manufacturing. I believe in the peace plan, and I fully support the ending of the manufacturing of the assault weapons, not only here but overseas. If we want to end the killings of people here in our country, we should be supporting the ending of the killing of people in other countries, because there's assault weapons that are taken. There's real live wars going on. There absolutely needs to be a way for us to, and Congress can do this, Congress has the power to regulate the gun industry through the Commerce Clause. So let's start supporting that, let's start regulating, let's start ending the manufacturing of these, the ammunitions. And when someone is going to get a weapon of whatever kind, look, we register our cars, we register our homes, we register health, anything we can think of, we have to register for. So why the hell are we not registering these guns? Why are we not making it mandatory? Because if for one day your gun goes missing and the police have somewhere to go to, instead of assuming that the shooting or killing is made by a black or brown person, we're automatically targeting people of color for violent crimes. So this would greatly help and benefit the justice system to bring about justice, to ensure that women like myself, and I'm very thankful for the Violence Against Women Act, something that John Cornyn is not willing to negotiate on because he wants to include some clause there for the NRA and the non-proliferation. I am here today because of the Violence Against Women Act. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't have survived a very abusive marriage. So, being that I am a survivor of domestic violence, I would not hesitate to sign and reauthorize the Violence Against Women Act to ensure that women are protected from abusive situations. And John Cornyn, is beholden to the NRA just as much as the fossil fuel industry. So I definitely do not support these weapons of war in our streets, in our homes, overseas, and I sure as hell do not support them in the hands of people with the soothsaying that we're going to use them for hunting.
Thank you very much.
That hell times from this assault weapon.
Christina?
So I graduated high school the year of the Columbine shooting, one of our first mass shootings in a public school. And so I've been waiting my entire adult life to see Congress act to do very basic things like pass universal background checks, ban assault-style weapons. And instead, we've been teaching a generation of children to learn how to play dead in their classrooms. That seemed like the more sane thing to do. So, of course, I support these very basic proposals. But I also know that we need a mandatory gun buyback. I do not believe that weapons of war belong in the hands of civilians. I simply do not. I believe in supporting the Second Amendment, but I do not believe that weapons that are meant to create massive human carnage, that can only create mass human suffering in instantaneous few seconds, that belongs in the hands of civilians. Now, we are having a debate in our country and in this state, not only because we have been victims recently with 2 mass shootings in this state just this year, but because there have been people organizing across this country and the state, Moms Demand Action. I think there's some people in this room that are part of this group. The number one issue I'm getting asked about on the campaign trail, which has surprised me, is about gun safety. Whether I'm in the Valley, whether I'm in Dallas, whether I'm in Highland Park, or the East End in Houston. That is the number one issue that people are worried about for their children. So I am really proud to have signed on to the March for Your Lives peace plan from the young people of Stoneman Douglas High School in Florida that have put forward a smart, multi-pronged platform about how we're going to address gun violence, not just in mass shootings, but in our increasing rates of suicide and the disproportionate rates and effects of gun violence on communities of color and women.
Thank you very much, Christina. Senator West?
Before becoming a state senator, I was an assistant district attorney in Dallas. And I ran the district attorney in Dallas. I was Democratic nominated. I've seen man's inhumanity to man. I've seen violence up close and personal. And that kind of set in place my position on this issue when Ann Richards was governor of the state of Texas. Y'all remember Ann? Okay. Well, when Ann she was the first governor I served under, the only Democratic governor I served under. But I worked with her. I think that as a first-term senator, second-term senator, one of the two, I filed a bill in order to do away with assault weapons. The fact arson of those weapons to the floor of the Senate. Well, both Democrats and Republicans looked at them, but they still didn't support the bill. I filed a bill to do universal background checks at gun shows, reduction of magazine sizes. Couldn't get the support back then. But something is happening in the country. All of these mass shootings that we see today, that we're getting numb. We're getting numb in terms of all the mass shootings that are occurring in our country. And yes, I want to make certain we do something about it, because we now have more people in this country, and I will also say in this state, that recognizes that yes, we can maintain the intent of the Second Amendment. And I will tell you that I will continue my efforts based on my experiences. I'll continue to make certain that I'm against gun violence. I want to make certain, yes, that we reauthorize the Violence Against Women's Act. And some of the hesitancy of doing that is because we have transgenders that are being considered. How stupid. Shouldn't transgenders also have protection against domestic violence?
Can you please finish the thought?
Okay, I will. So you see where I am on this issue. Okay, and you're a United States Senator. You can be assured that I will be out front, as I have been since Aaron Richards was governor of the state of Texas, making sure we put together a coalition in order to get something done.
Thank you very much. Chris?
No issue better demonstrates how broken our democracy is than gun violence. When 80 to 90% of Americans agree that we should have red flag laws and universal background checks, and the Senate still refuses to take action because the NRA opposes it. The NRA that represents about 6% of gun owners in the United States, that's sickening in my way of thinking. But the good news is that Moms Demand Action is now raising more money than the National Rifle Association, and they're not going to stop until they get results out of Washington, D.C., and I'm going to be right there with them. And I don't think universal background checks and red flag laws are enough. We need to go further than that. And long before I got in the Senate race, I read an opinion piece for the Houston Chronicle calling on a ban and buyback program fashioned after what they did in Australia. And people say, oh, you can't. You can. And we should look at it because they had a mass shooting in 1986 and they passed a ban and buyback program. It wasn't easy. The sponsor of that bill got burned in effigy and got reelected, by the way. But after they passed the bill, they haven't had a single mass shooting since. They say, oh, it's our constitutional right. You can't make those guns illegal. Wrong. We made machine guns illegal when they were being snatched up by mobsters and used. We made sawed-off shotguns illegal. Of course we can make them illegal. How long are we going to allow this insanity to go on? And it needs to be mandatory. It does not need to be voluntary. People should be compensated for their guns, and we need to get them off the streets because they do not belong in the hands of civilians.
Thank you very much, Chris. Councilmember Edwards, we'll start with you for this next question, so let you know you're on deck. Try to keep this one as brief as possible. It's a very important issue to this group here. It came up a lot in the questions that were submitted. A priority of theirs is democracy reform. So this is basically a two-part question. Individual members want to know, would you have voted for H.R. 1 before the People Act? And I don't need to know every single democracy reform as it relates to campaign finance, ethics that you support, but name one that's among the most important to you.
Well, I think
I'm going to try to keep these answers under.
one of the things I think is deeply troubling with the state of our campaign finance, the state of campaign finance, has been the impact of dark money in terms of what happens in our elections. I think there has to be accountability. And right now, it's got a short. I think there has to be accountability, and with the influx of dark money into our electoral policy, process, what you see is that there are people who remain anonymous, who influence the information that we receive, the perspective that we have, when information is as sparse as it can possibly be. Now it's being influenced with people without even enough courage to be able to assign their name. So they put these monies through PACs, and these PACs will then fund horrible campaigns against individuals and candidates, and we have to be more vigilant about campaign finance reform.
Getting dark money out of politics.
Dark money has to come out.
Would you vote for H.R. 1?
Yeah, we have to get that out.
Okay. And
Campaign finance reform is absolutely necessary if we are going to have a functioning democracy. We cannot expect, I entered this race with self-financed. I'm not Michael Bloomberg, but I was able to come up with a $5,000 to file. And at least I can afford that. But campaign finance is, it completely distorts the process. And now we have the Texas Republican Party announcing that they are going to create websites, fake websites of our candidates, our Democratic candidates, to fool voters. They're not outsourcing to Russia anymore. They're just keeping it in-house. So we need to be very clear about what's at stake here, because the one thing that we as Americans have, the one kind of check on government is our ability to vote. And when that starts getting distorted, we lose control. So I think that we need to start with the way that we fund campaigns, and it needs to be an even playing field for everybody. Get more people, more diversity, what people that not just look differently than other people, but professionally are different, have welders, have lower income people, hit the whole spectrum. That our government looked like our America. Can you imagine what we could do together? I mean, it'd be incredible.
Thank you. Annie, HR 1, would you support that in the Senate? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Seema?
All right, can you tell me what's HR 1?
It's a host of democracy reforms. That was a priority of the new Democratic Congress.
Okay, so I'm not familiar with HR 1 and all those forms. We know that there's plenty of
Right.
House bills and House resolutions that are being stalled because of what's going
Sure,
on.
totally. That's why I definitely want to give you an opportunity to talk. If not familiar with the bill, some of the proposals that
I'm
you
just being honest, I'm not familiar with the bill, but I will get to know with it. Whatever I don't know, I will research the hell out of it. Two, I definitely support ending the dark money in our politics. That's just one of the reasons why I take the No Fossil Fuel Money Pledge, and I'm also taking the pledge of not to participate in any company or organization that is donating to a campaign that is funding war. So I took the Divest from War pledge. Our campaign is funded by small dollar donations. Grassroots no bundlers is one of my things that I do. And so we would greatly appreciate more donations that are financed by the people instead of the industry. And no, corporations are not people. So let's overturn Citizens United. Thank you.
Thank you, Seema. Christina?
So, what I understand is that democracy, real democracy, has always been a radical idea in this country. Even when our nation was formed and we only extended the franchise to white land-owning men, that was a radical idea because it said that, and then we had to extend the vote, of course, to African Americans and then women and women of color in this country. But today, democracy is just as radical as an idea as it was then, as it is now. Because it means that there are no kings, that our votes are equal regardless of the color of our skin, our income, our gender, our sexual orientation. And so we must protect the idea and concept of democracy that's under threat, and I think we have to do 3 critical things to do that. So yes, I support HR 1, and we need to make sure that we come to a place. We have to get out dark money, and we have to have publicly financed elections so that candidates actually respond to the American public, and that we have an even playing field of diverse set of opinions and ideas to have the diverse debate we need in our democracy. We have to make it to a place where, why do we have to opt in to register to vote? In other countries, in other places, you have to opt out not to register. Everyone should be able to vote if you are a U.S. citizen in this country, easily and effectively. And then the third thing, I want to make National Election Day a federal holiday so that every single American can go out and vote, and that it is something that we can teach our children to do, that we can take them with us to the polls, and it is as a celebration. If July 4th is one of the greatest celebrations that we experience in this country, I want to make National Election Day one of the greatest celebrations that we experience with our neighbors, with our families, with our friends, with our community, because it is about protecting that radical of real democracy.
Thank you very much, Christina. Senator West?
I am for HR 1, and I am for removing dark money from our system. But something else I think we ought to be doing. I think any candidate for president of the United States should be required to turn over their tax returns as a condition of running for office. Make sure that there's transparency. And so I won't belabor my response. It's pretty consistent with most of the persons.
Thank you so much. Chris?
Well, I do support HR 1, and this is an issue that is near and dear to my heart. As a member of the Houston City Council, I chair the Ethics Committee, and we passed some sweeping reforms that the city had seen up to that point in time. As a member of Congress, I broke the truce that had been placed on the filing of ethics complaints and filed an ethics complaint against Tom DeLay that helped lead his disgraceful exit from the United States Congress. And I will be going to the Senate at a time where legal corruption runs rampant. Citizens United is one of the worst decisions that has ever come down from the Supreme Court, and it needs to be overturned legislatively. We've taken campaign money and now put it on steroids. It's like nothing any of us thought we would ever see, and it was getting somewhat under control after it became final, and certainly was getting under control, or looked like it might be getting under control because of the success Barack Obama had raising money and small amounts online. But then shortly after he gets elected president, I don't think it's any big coincidence that suddenly the Citizens United decision comes down, and now you have these super PACs running rampant. We have put forth a whole anti-corruption plan. It can be found on my website, which is electchrisbell.com. I would invite you to read about it. It doesn't only take on campaign finance and trying to take corporate money out of politics, but addresses a lot of other issues as well.
Thanks, Chris. Jack?
Yes. Yes, I support HR 1. But the thing is that, I just don't understand why we cannot have fair, free elections. We need all brains on deck. It's no telling what people who have no money can do for us. They may win, they may lose, but they'll bring out, some ideas that we never thought about before. That concerns me dearly, because like Alan Turner said, sometimes it's people no one can imagine anything of who do the things no one can imagine. And that scares me all the time when we, just because somebody's poor, just they don't have the money to do this, they don't have the money to do that, and we have to leave them behind all because of, the capitalistic society that we live in. And so, there were always, burning inside of me to change that. HR 1, I definitely be on that side.
Thank you very much. For this next question, just to give you a heads up, Andy, we'll start with you. Another issue that came up a lot from individual members was healthcare. There was a pretty direct question aggregated from the members, so I'll just read it and pose it to you. Do you believe healthcare is a human right, and do you support, do you believe healthcare is a human right and support Medicare for all as the right method to achieve it?
So that's a really interesting way that you worded that, because I actually use those words in my introduction. I want to tell you a little story. In 2014, I rushed my baby girl into the ER, barely breathing. She had been born with an undiagnosed congenital heart defect, and unbeknownst to us, for the first 6 weeks of her life, she was slowly suffocating. We did not have insurance. For the next 12 weeks, we lived in the NICU. She survived on dozens of medications, countless procedures, and ultimately 2 open heart surgeries. She survived. She survived with about $1.5 million in treatment. Financially, our life savings should have been wiped out. But our baby was lucky enough to be born in Spain, where healthcare is a human right and not a for-profit business model. And that's right. They get it right. No parent should ever have to choose between bankruptcy and their child's life. And I want a system that looks like that, where there's no payment at point of service, there's no co-pays, co-insurance, deductibles, out-of-network limits, pre-existing conditions. We should have complete coverage, and it's cheaper. We spend more money in this country than any other country in the world on healthcare, and our outcomes are worse. We cover a quarter of our people don't have sufficient access. Up to 400,000 people in this country die because of medical error. It's not even good. And 40,000 people die because they can't even get access. So this is an easy answer. We will be healthier, we will be better, and we will be richer if we convert to a single-payer system.
Thank you very much. Sina?
Well, I'm using this microphone because the other one apparently is not registering online. So I definitely want to support that healthcare is a human right, and the way to get there is through Medicare for all, and particularly the bill that is already in the Senate. It's the Senate Bill 1129. That is a gold standard that would raise our standard of care exponentially. It would lower the maternal mortality rate in our country, which is extremely high, especially for Black women. So in order to achieve health equity and equality within our healthcare system and justice is through Medicare for all. And a lot of people will say, well, how are we going to pay for it? but we are already paying for it at this very moment. Right now, every single one of us in here pays taxes, and those taxes are being used ineffectively and inefficiently to subsidize the health insurance industry. So although a lot of people will talk about access and affordability, that doesn't mean anything when you can't afford it, and nor can you access it because hospitals across this country, specifically across the state, are being closed down because of lack of funding. Because it's left up to the states of how much we're spending on our healthcare system. Right now, we have the ability to implement Medicare for All. Unfortunately, we have a very corporate Congress that is not really taking this healthcare epidemic seriously. And being that I do have 6 years of experience working in acute healthcare, and I have 6 years of experience working in the insurance industry, I can tell you the entire purpose of the ACA, of the health insurance industry, is to create this for-profit healthcare-driven system where they get to decide whether you are worth fighting for or not. Whether you are going to be denied, or you're going to be accepted, or they're going to charge you more because you happen to be a woman with reproductive abilities. So let's no longer continue on this path of affordable and accessible when we know what is absolutely obtainable now. Why are we waiting? Why are we capitulating to the system that continues to kill us at a greater rate? 34,000 people a year are dying because of lack of health care. Let's end that now.
Thank you, Seema. Christina?
So, by any measure, if we look at our healthcare system, it's a failed system. So by allowing private health insurance companies to profit off of our pain, our suffering, and illness, we've not only created the most expensive healthcare system in the world, we've created one with some of the worst outcomes of any industrialized nation. By any measure, that is a failed system. And that's why I support Medicare for All, because I believe it's the most cost-effective, the best way to provide the highest quality health care for the American people. I believe everyone should be able to go to the doctor when they're sick, and everyone should have high quality health care when they have a serious illness or injury, and that no state perhaps would benefit more from Medicare for All than Texas, because we have 1 in 6 Texans don't have health insurance in this state. And that's not even talking about those of us that have health insurance but are underinsured, or have to pay co-pays, deductibles, or worry about if we do have a hospital visit, how much we're going to have when we leave. People talk about how it's too expensive, or how are we going to pay for it? Well, one, yes, we have the most expensive system in the world. But secondarily, I ran a nonprofit with about 40 employees, and every year I worked really hard to make sure that we covered 100% of the premium for our employees. And every year that premium got more expensive, and then often the quality and copay and deductible that people had to pay got higher. And I was trying to do the right thing by my employees. So when I go and talk to entrepreneurs and people that run businesses, they tell me that they would love to not have to worry about these things. And people would love to be able to go start new businesses and not have to worry about whether they're going to have health care or not. So you talk about an accelerator in our economy, an equalizer that's actually going to help growth. It's having health care for everyone.
Thank you very much, Christina. Senator West?
All right, thank you. Yes, healthcare should be a basic right for all citizens in this country. The fact of the matter is that if persons want to have Medicare for all, then they should be able to do that. But I am not for a system that says that if you have a health care plan and you want to keep that health care plan, that you've got to go off of that health care plan and be a part of Medicare for all. Now, when I begin to look at the issues concerning this, I look at it from the vantage point of being in the legislature when President Barack Obama spent an inordinate amount of political capital to pass the Affordable Care Act. And then we had Mitch McConnell standing over in the Senate saying, what? I'm going to make certain he's a one-term president. And then the Republicans lined up from the top to the bottom in order to weaponize health care in this country. Texas being one of the main states. When you look at where we are right now, there are, 1 or 2 court decisions right now trying to do away with the Affordable Care Act here in the state of Texas. It's making its way through Congress. Rick Perry, when he was governor of the state of Texas, the federal government would put $10 billion a year in the state of Texas in order to put our health care system. Rick Perry and Republicans decided to say, no, we didn't want the money. That would have been over $100 billion. The but yet and still in every legislative session, we've got to do a supplemental appropriation bill in order to fund, in many parts, the underestimation of Medicaid in the state of Texas. And so, yes, we need to do something about it. We can do something about it. Those rabbit trails about it's too expensive, well, we need to reprioritize expenditures at the federal level to make certain that we have Medicaid, Medicare for all, for those who want to be in the system, and those that want to stay in their healthcare systems or plans right now, still be able to do that. We know that if we have children in our state, 25% are with no insurance, that we make certain they get insurance and we have better outcomes in school because they're well and able to function better in our schools as a result of that.
Thank you very much. We've got, I think, 3 more candidates left to answer this question, then we'll start doing audience questions. So just if everyone can get ready. Chris, healthcare question.
Yes, for a long time I believe that healthcare is a right and not a privilege, and that's why I support access to Medicare for all. I think the Affordable Care Act was a huge step in the right direction. It's a heavy lift, and I commend the Obama administration for getting it done. And while it did a lot to address accessibility, it didn't do a lot to address affordability. And so a lot of small business owners have been left with plans that are a little more than catastrophic care plans, paying huge premiums with huge deductibles, and so you're left with very little coverage. But I also agree that those who have private plans, and there are a lot of progressive individuals that have private insurance plans that they like a great deal. A lot of them are union members, and their leaders have negotiated for those private plans, so they don't want them taken away, and I don't think they should. But I do think there needs to be access to Medicare for all so that there will be a public option, and so that the insurance companies will be forced to finally play fairly if they want to stay in business. And here in Texas, we need to recognize the real-life consequences of all of this. Obviously, we have the highest number of uninsured individuals in the entire country. We also have the highest maternal mortality rate. And that's not a coincidence. Those goes hand in hand. One of the main reasons that pregnancy is so risky here in Texas, that a lot of times women don't have access to quality health care throughout their lives. And so when they get pregnant and they do have access to medical care, sometimes they're being treated for a number of different illnesses, making the pregnancy that much riskier. I also want to restore funding for Planned Parenthood that provides basic health care to thousands of low-income women. I want to see the cost of pharmaceuticals addressed. We should be paying higher prices here in the United States than other parts of the world. That makes no sense whatsoever. So there are a lot of things when it comes to health care that need a lot of attention.
Thank you. Chris, Jack?
There's absolutely no reason why health care can't be affordable. I wouldn't be for free because that's abuse. That's what you're asking for. But we can make it affordable. Now, what we don't ask these counties to do is get involved. I'm talking about counties like Harris County, Liberty County, Fort Bend County. These counties can get together and impress upon all these hospitals in that area, what they need to do. And then in addition to that, we got to be able to have people, go to school and get some skills. I'm not talking about college. I'm talking about get some certifications, some licensures, so they can afford to take care of themselves. And we can do that. I'm talking about me paying. I'm talking about taxpayers, people who own homes, who own property, can afford to pay for these people to go to school and get some skills, and they can get paid for doing that. If you, invest in somebody that's disadvantaged, you get your money back plus 8%. If it's just your child, an advantaged person, you get your money back plus 5%. And if anybody fails, you get your money back plus 2%. Why? Because we want everybody to be able to afford to take care of themselves. A continuous progression of security. Now, we can't do it right away, but we can strive to do that. Thank you.
Jack, just briefly if possible, any thoughts on Medicare for all or single-payer healthcare system? Just
No, I told you I'm for affordable now universal coverage and affordable health care. That doesn't be a problem.
Okay. Councilmember Edwards?
When I was about 10 years old, my father was diagnosed with cancer, and I learned about our U.S. healthcare system by asking my dad questions like whether his experimental healthcare treatment would be covered by his healthcare provider and insured. And as I asked questions and learned more about what insurance was, my dad would answer my questions. And I'd ask, well, what happens if they say no? And my dad would answer, well, we'd have to figure something out. And I recall asking the other question, which is, well, what happens if somebody can't figure it out? And the truth of the matter is that this is a life or death issue for so many people, not just in this room, across the state, across this country. So with that framing in mind, while I did lose my father when I was 17, the fact that my dad did have good access to coverage kept him around a lot longer. So I remember the life lessons that I was able to learn from my father by having him around. And so when I think about access to health care and what would be optimal in this country, I think about little girls like I was, and the fact that I want to make sure that we keep the urgency of the issue in mind. And so with that being said, I believe the real answer here is expanding access to coverage, making sure that people are adequately insured, and providing people with the options that they're looking for. So with respect to that, I believe we need to have an affordable public option so that those that want an option that is provided publicly that is not tied to employer-based coverage have that option and can afford it. We also need to make sure that those that want an employer-based coverage option may maintain that, but also whoever it is and whatever you're in, that those premiums are actually affordable. What we have seen is that the cost of the premiums have gone up. We need more transparency in our billing. We need to make sure that the insured pool is predictable so that those premiums are not as high. One of the things that's also important is to make sure that we're closing the loopholes that have been expanded under the Trump administration for things like short-term coverage, which is basically a wide open loophole for being underinsured. When I was in law school, I worked for Elizabeth Warren and worked on the issue of how healthcare impacts the fragility of the middle class. In other words, very easy to fall out of the middle class if you are underinsured. So we have to be vigilant about that, but we also must make sure that whatever action we take it now, because lives are lying in the balance, and this, in fact, is a human right.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to the audience question section. We should have about 15, 20 minutes to do it, and then just as a reminder, we'll wrap up with some closing statements. We have some very straightforward questions, some not so straightforward questions. We'll start with a straightforward question, and if we could just go down the line on this one as a heads up. I think we're starting with Seema. Question is, do you support ending the death penalty?
Yes, I do. I've been organizing the abolitionist movement every now and again. My absolute answer is yes, let's abolish the death penalty altogether. Well, we're at an abolition. Why not?
Thank you. Christina?
Yes, I support abolishing the death penalty. It's one of the systems that is most cruelly and disproportionately used against people of color. I also support it. There is a new platform out by Congresswoman Presley out of Massachusetts, a People's Justice platform that looks at remaking our criminal justice system to actually be about justice. So there's just one key component to transition our country to not have 2.2 million people incarcerated, and look at actually funding fully our schools, our communities, and making sure that we haven't created a criminal justice system that disproportionately impacts particularly communities of color and low-income people. But it needs to be done as a holistic approach into reforming our criminal justice system.
Thank you very much. Senator West?
I'm for having a moratorium on the death penalty, but I'm not for doing away with it wholeheartedly. Issues of mass shootings, incidents where you have capital murders, aggravated sexual assaults, and then you turn around and have someone murder the person. I have a hard time saying that there should not be some sort of retribution by society, but it cannot be indiscriminately handed out.
Thank you very much. Chris, I guess we're waiting for the mic to get down here.
I think the death penalty should only be used in very rare circumstances. I was a big advocate for life without parole, and as a result of having life without parole, I think most juries are more likely to side with that punishment rather than the death penalty. But there are certain instances, and there have been certain instances throughout my life that I think have warranted the death penalty. And just a couple of days ago, we had, from what all accounts have written, an incredible police officer, 32 years old, gunned down for absolutely no reason. And in reading that article this morning, I found myself incensed, and I don't think anybody could have read that article without becoming incensed. And unless there's a real good mental case to be made, that's probably one circumstance where the death penalty would be warranted.
Thanks, Chris. Jack?
I am for the death penalty, but we got to be sure. You know, we got to make sure that we're getting the right person. We got to, make sure it's distributed equally, amongst the races. We cannot, unequally, cast this down on, society anymore without it being equal for sure. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Edwards?
With organizations like the Innocence Project having to exist because of the fact that we can't even be sure that the people we are putting to death have in fact committed crimes, I don't think I can support or advocate or justify the killing of another human being. And the fact of the matter is, mistake after mistake after mistake has continued to be made and will continue to be made because we have a flawed criminal justice system. I believe that we cannot simply say, because we think you may have committed the crime, we will then in fact have a very final determination. And so I would be against the death penalty.
Thank you very much. And Annie?
I agree with Amanda. In the first year of law school, we have criminal law, and we discuss what is the point of a criminal justice system. And it's rehabilitation, the three kind of points that it centers around is rehabilitation, deterrent for future crimes, and this idea of justice, of punishment. Our criminal justice system is so broken that the last thing I want to do is empower to take somebody's life. It's applied, it's incredibly racist in how it's applied, who ends up serving time, how much time they serve. And while in theory, maybe if someone does something really heinous, then they deserve to be put to death. In reality, it doesn't work, and I'm unwilling to give the state the right to take a human life.
Thank you very much. And for this next question, we'll start with Christina. I believe it's her turn to start. And this question touches on immigration, which is a topic that Indivisible members asked about. We're just going to have time to get to the moderator section, so I'll just pose it to you now. The question from the audience member is, as the son of immigrants, I would like to know what's your plan to reform our broken immigration system and stop the travesties at the border? Christina, we'll start with you. And just a reminder, try to keep these around a minute long at most. We got other questions here.
So I truly believe that perhaps no state has benefited more from the contributions economically and culturally of immigrants than Texas. 1 in 3 of us are like me. We are immigrants or children of immigrants in this state. I spent a decade and a half representing undocumented workers. Half of the people in the state who build our schools, our homes, our roadways do so without documentation in Texas. And I have seen up close the failures of an immigration system that is willing to accept undocumented workers' labor, but not their full humanity. So as Democrats, we have an opportunity to not just say what we're against in this moment. Of course, we're against putting children in cages and separating them from their parents, but we also have to say what we stand for. So of course, I stand with Dreamers, but I also stand with their parents, that we have to legalize the status of 11 million people who have been waiting for Congress to act, who have been contributing and great participants of our societies and community, but then we also have to overhaul our immigration system. We have to allow people to come to the country safely and legally to fill our labor needs and be honest about that. And we have to allow them to be full human beings. And I think we also have to talk about what the debate around immigration is truly about. I do not believe that Donald Trump and John Cornyn are just afraid of people like my 62-year-old immigrant Mexican mother. But I believe that they are deeply afraid of people like me, her U.S. citizen daughter that can vote and has a dramatically different vision for my country than the one I see today. And that is at the heart of what the debate about immigration is about. That they are afraid of the power of the vote of immigrants and their children in our communities. And I say John Cornyn should be, because it's going to be this proud immigrant daughter that unseats him.
Thank you, Christina.
You know, I think that we're in a situation where we have a leader that, frankly, just wants to see immigrants coming in from Europe. The fact that, no, right. The fact of the matter is that he was caught on tape calling different countries from Africa whole countries. Y'all remember that? And so we're in a situation in this country where Anglos that think like him feel as though that they are going to be outnumbered eventually and not have a seat at the table of power. You know that's not the case. Because we can continue to build coalitions based on interests, not based on color, one skin, or gender, but based on interests. And so when we look at the immigrant issue, I think that obviously it's an issue that ends up being as a result of persons coming in from south of the border. We have people coming in from Haiti, from Jamaica, all over this world. So we have to look at all this. And yes, when we have instances where we have children placed in cages in order to dissuade persons from coming over the border, how inhumane. What type of person would authorize that type of treatment of other individuals? Over the years, as it relates to immigrant-related issues, specifically DACA, go back and look. Kids that have come to the Capitol to advocate for their rights, I've been supportive of them. The fact of the matter is, many of them came into the education community and basically told the story. I can go to school, but I can't get a job after I graduate from college. And I've been an advocate of making certain that there was a pathway to citizenship for those young people. I'll continue to do that. Yes, we need to fix the immigration system to have more expedited hearings, which means we have to put more resources in. We don't need a damn wall, okay? We don't need a wall. Do we need more enforcement on the border? Yes. But we can do that without some wall. And so we need to fix it.
Wrap it up that thought.
Let me finish this thought. I will be an advocate of doing that. I have done it in the past, and I will continue to do it in the future.
Thank you very much. Chris, once we get the microphone.
These forums have taught us all to speak faster, but I still haven't been able to come up with a 1-minute immigration reform plan. But I'll do my best. And I agree with Julian Castro that protecting our borders and treating those seeking refuge with dignity and respect would not have to be mutually exclusive. I think there are ways to accomplish both. And I completely agree with his approach to decriminalizing this whole immigration system. I think that Section 1325 of the Immigration and Nationality Act needs to be overturned. There need to be civil penalties, because right now Section 1325 is being used to basically justify all the cruelty that we see on the border, separating children from their families and what have you. I also want to see the for-profit detention centers done away with. Of course, I don't want to see any funding for the wall. I think that's ridiculously stupid. And I want to see a pathway to citizenship, not only for the dreamers, but the others who have been living here lawfully, contributing to our economy, and raising their families. I think we understand that better than most here in the state of Texas. It's preposterous to act like we're going to deport 11 million people who've been contributing to our economy. And it's time that we stop talking about it and finally develop a pathway to citizenship.
Thanks, Chris. Jack?
One of the number one reasons people from the Northern Triangle come to America is because of soil erosion. You know, they cannot grow any food. So that, causes them to, they be pulled in this direction. And so, I believe that if, first of all, I am for DACA and I'm for a pathway to citizenship, but this really has nothing to do with that. This has everything to do with, letting people come in, apply for asylum, and let us give them some skills. And while they're here, it takes about 3 years to get your asylum claim heard. And so in that time, you go to a community college, you get some skills, and if it doesn't work out for you, you can go back home, but you have some skills. I know that we need to direct more people toward soil technologies. Why? Because if they're going to go back home to the northern triangle, they're going to have to be able to teach others how to, till their soil and how to plant. And, you can't keep planting the same thing over and over. You got to mix it up. But yes, I am for, legal immigration.
Thank you, Jack. Councilor Roberts.
Sometimes we have very jarring instances in our history, in our communities, that bring our attention to issues that we have not yet resolved. In this case, we've had children in cages. That's brought a lot of attention to an issue that we have been kicking the can down the road for quite some time. And it's long overdue for us to be very serious about comprehensive immigration reform. It's obvious that it is wholly unacceptable to put children in cages at the border of our country and separate them from their families. But what has not become obvious to date in terms of what our Congress and people in Washington have been willing to do is actually make real codified changes to our immigration policies. It should not be the case that we have immigration policy by we should have a consistent set of laws in our country that don't create the conditions that have caused people to want to enter into the country illegally because the waiting times are still in the 1990s. We have to be serious about comprehensive immigration reform. We also have to think about how we are deploying our resources. In a city like Houston, that is a quarter of its community is born from a foreign country. Victimizing our communities and tearing our communities and families apart are not the ways in which I think we need to be utilizing resources. We need to be devoting resources regarding ICE, for example, to things like human trafficking, which really is an epidemic. We need to be devoting those resources to things like violent crime and drug trafficking. Those are legitimate means in which we need to devote resources to keep people safe and protect families. When we think about our immigration policy, there are people in this country, in this city, in this state that live in terror each and every single day, not just because they may know someone who is undocumented or not legally here, but rather there is not a safe space for even those like those in DACA who were supposed to have a pathway.
Finish that thought.
So in closing, I will say we have to lead with courage on this issue. We have to codify into law what the pathways to citizenship will look like and be, make a decision, and have a better approach for our overall system of immigration overall so that people don't look to other means to enter the country. And so that is something that is long overdue and we must be vigilant about going forward.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Edwards. Annie?
This issue is very personal to me. My husband is a naturalized U.S. citizen, and when I was a banking and finance attorney, I moonlit as a pro bono immigration attorney. And one of my clients really stands out. She presented herself at IAH when she arrived from Nigeria, asked for asylum, and was immediately placed in a CCA facility over there for 8 months. And I bring this up because I want to tie this to Carlos Hernandez. A video surfaced this past week. The incident happened in May. And this is one of these situations where I really believe that a picture is worth 1,000 words. And I want to have an honest discussion about what we're talking about, because it's easy to talk about kids in cages, but sometimes I think we need to really look at things. And I think about Joy, my client, because she was there, and I see this picture that came from the video. I want all the candidates to be able to see it too. This boy, 16-year-old boy from Guatemala, had a 103-degree fever. Any parent in the room knows that that is ER territory. But instead he was put in a room, one of these rooms that they frequently call an icebox. If you watch the video, and this is what stands out to me because I remember Joy, my client, telling me about this at the CCA facility out by IH. They freeze them. They freeze them. So his blanket, his piece of aluminum foil, he has 103-degree fever, and he's lying there. He's lying there. And he's freezing. And ultimately he collapses. And he ends up dying on the floor next to the toilet. Imagine if this was your child. How can we be doing this? This isn't who we are. I can't believe that this is who we are. And as Democrats, we are the last line of defense. If we don't stop this, the Republicans aren't. Their donors are making money off of this.
And we move on to SEMA.
So I have asked all of the campaigns here to join me at an event on the border in McAllen to draw attention to this, to tour the facility, and to highlight what's going on. I entered this race because I believed as a candidate alone I could make a difference. And I would love it if every campaign, SEMA has already agreed to do this. I would love it if you would all would go with me the week between.
Thank you. And we need to move on to SEMA. I'm sorry. We've got to keep moving.
So there is definitely an immigration crisis happening at the border, and it's sometimes something that candidates use as a backdrop to launch campaigns, and they only talk about it when it's politically convenient. But what's happening at the border has been happening for centuries. Actually, yeah, for a very long time. And it's not just happening with people crossing the border, it's happening to indigenous people, and now those facilities are being used to cage our children, to separate families. And so I fully agree with going with Annie to the border, and I would encourage the rest of the candidates go and take a trip to the border and see what these facilities look like. If we're not allowed to go in, that's fine. But we should definitely see where the border wall is going up and see the indigenous tribes, the indigenous land as being disturbed and remains. But to get to your question about immigration reform, I totally support immigration reform right now. There's a lot of pushback from Democrats and from Republicans historically on immigration reform. We can't ever agree. And the one thing that they do agree on is the exploitation of the undocumented workers. And undocumented workers, undocumented people are more susceptible to sexual abuse, are more susceptible to being killed and not report those crimes if they are victims of abuse, even in the workplace. A lot of them are exploited and not given back their visas, or they're being threatened to work for free. So this exploitation exists, and it has existed a long time. The reason why there isn't an advancement in immigration reform laws is because the industries which employ them, their employers, do not want that to happen, because that would force them to treat the undocumented people in this country, which there has clearly been said 11 million undocumented people in this country, would be treated as human beings and be paid a living wage, and would have the ability to, one, register to vote, become citizens, of course, and actually matter. And to me, every single person in this country, whether you're documented or not, y'all definitely matter. And it's important that we do the outreach, that we represent them, and that we don't exclude them from the conversation. And to ensure that DACA, because I know right now DACA, there is no direct pathway to citizenship for DACA recipients, but in my plan, it's automatically giving DACA recipients the ability to become residents and become citizens without having to pay the exponential fees and the processing that it takes right now at the moment.
Thank you very much, Seema. That is going to do it for audience questions. We obviously didn't get to several of them. I'm sure some of the candidates may be sticking around afterward if you want to talk to them with your question or with your issue. Definitely want to move on to closing statements now. I think we'll start with Senator West. He was next as first up. Just tell us briefly a little bit about who you are, why you're running, and how people can get in touch with your campaign.
First of all, I want to thank Indivisible for putting this on. Let's give the organization a hand. And the great thing about it is we have Grapevine here and other chapters that have been streamed across the state of Texas. So all of you out there, thank you for participating. My name is Royce West. I'm a state senator from the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I've been in the state senate for the past 26 years. And I have worked very hard to make certain that issues that are important to Democrats, in fact, have been addressed. When I think about our country, I have never, ever seen our country in the condition that it's in right now. I've never seen a president that has taken so many liberties. And yes, you could probably shoot someone in Times Square and get away with it if Republicans ruled this country. I shudder to think about if we wake up the day after the election and Donald Trump is president of the United States. You know, America has so much potential, but there's a lot of people that are struggling in this country. I think about people that come in my office, persons that need to get financial assistance for housing, that have to make tough decisions as to whether or not they're going to pay a lease, pay their rent, or pay for medical supplies, prescriptions. I shudder to think about our foster care system, where we have kids that are taken out of their home, put into a foster care system, and we have, how many of you know a grandparent is taking care of their grandchildren? Okay? There are a lot of grandparents that are having to take care of their grandchildren because the grandchildren have been taken out of the home. But can we do something about it? Have you done anything about it, Senator West? Yes. When you begin to look at issues concerning gun sales, I've been very involved in that. When you begin to look at issues concerning health care, I've been there urging Texas to be more transparent and more accommodating to people who are less fortunate. When we begin to look at women's rights, and what my position is on, I've been there. The night when there was a great debate here in Texas, when Wendy Davis was debating, I was on the floor of Texas State Senate, working to make certain that we defeated those motions there. Maybe we look at criminal justice, we look at body cameras, look at dash cameras. I'm the one that brought those laws into being in the state of Texas. Education. I worked very hard on education, creating universities. And so what I'm saying to you is this. There are a lot of issues in this country. And if you want someone that has a demonstrated track record of dealing with these issues that we're talking about this evening, I'm that person. I think that you can kind of look at a person.
Please wrap it up, Senator West.
I will. You can kind of look at a person's past to see what they're going to be doing in the future. If you look at my past, you'll see what I'm doing in the future. You'll see that of the 12 Democratic senators in the state of Texas, 10 are supporting me, have endorsed me as the nominee for the United States Senate. Of the 67 House members, 47, 49 of the House members have endorsed me. So that broad base support.
We need to move on to Chris here.
So I ask you to go to roycequest.com and look at my website, and hopefully you can support Royce as your choice for the United States Senate.
Thank you very much. Chris, your closing statement.
I want to thank Indivisible for allowing us to be here this evening and for all of you coming out to share some time and listening to us. I think it's extremely important. I thought we were going to wake up to sunshine this morning since the cloud of veto O'Rourke had been lifted off of this race. That was not to be, but in all seriousness, the filing deadline has passed, the field is set, and I think it's time that we get down to business and defeating John Cornyn and getting rid of the most disastrous president in our history. I've been in this fight for a very long time. I care a great deal about our country, about our state, and I can't stand the direction that we're moving in right now. And John Cornyn is incredibly vulnerable, but he's not going to be a push-up. And looking at the race, I thought it was vitally important that somebody with my experience would get in the race to take him on. I'm the only one on the Democratic side who's actually served in Congress and has run statewide before. And whether you're talking about law or medicine or cooking or plumbing, the experience counts. It helps, and it's going to be very helpful in running against John Cornyn, and it will be very helpful in serving in the United States Senate. Every election year, we're told that it's the most important election of our lifetime. But this time, it really is. Donald Trump, obviously, is a terrible president, but we have his chief water boy as our United States Senator. And regardless of what issue that you're talking about, and we got to talk about a lot of them tonight, but whether it's health care or climate change or a woman's right to choose or LGBTQ equality, regardless of what the issue is, John Cornyn is wrong on all of those issues. And I'm right. And I know how to fight. And I know how Washington works. And I'm looking forward to going back and being your United States Senator. And tonight, I ask you to join me in this fight. Thanks so much for coming out.
Thank you, Chris. Jack, the closing statement.
Yes, my name is Jack Foster Jr. And my website is ojackdaniels.com. Now, there's a silent majority that people really don't talk about, and that is the taxpayer. I'm not talking about just a sales taxpayer. I am talking about somebody who pays property taxes and pays school taxes. You know, we got a big bill coming up by the end of January. If you don't pay it at the end of January, well, you know what's going to happen to you. You know, they're going to put those tax, they're going to put some more fees on you. But it's the free stuff that gets people. And the homeowner and property owner never gets anything back. And that's clearly frustrating to Texans for sure. Now, they tried to put Proposition 4 on you. That would have been state income tax, that would have been property tax, and school tax. I mean, are we going to get some relief? You know, that's what I'm talking about. If you look at my cycle of return in cities for Texas County, it's all about property owners and homeowners being able to make their money back. You know, that's no joke. You know, you cannot make your money back nowhere else except for investing in skilled trades for people to have so we can fight this environmental issue. So we can fight, you know, unemployment issues. You know, it's always a disconnect. You know, when they talk about these metrics about how good the economy is doing. But unfortunately, I mean, go right outside, right here in South Houston, to find out that that's not right. You know, that's just the way it is. So we got to do something about it ourselves. We can't concern ourselves with, you know what I mean, student loans, financial aid. No, let me do it. Let the taxpayer get their money back. My name is Jack Daniel Foster Jr. I run for the United States Senate.
Thank you, Jack. Councilmember Edwards.
In 2017, 51 inches of rainfall came across our city. And as that happened, we made sure that we were trying to take care of those who were in need, particularly some of our most vulnerable, some of our seniors. When I was checking on them in North Houston, what I learned was that many of our seniors were not taking the walls out of their home despite the fact that they had been soiled by floodwaters. So I mobilized volunteers to go out door to door, checking on our seniors, making sure that we were connecting them to people who could help them get those walls out of their home so that mold would not set in. When I would step foot on those doorsteps, however, one of the things that was striking to me was the notion that because you see an elected official stepping foot on your doorstep, suddenly you must think, oh, well, are you up for re-election? Right? Sounds harmless enough, except that it's not, and we deserve better. We have conditioned our public to believe that we are only good for showing up on your doorstep when we need something from you, rather than to actually be there to deposit in your lives at maybe the most critical juncture, like, for example, the second worst disaster in U.S. history. This is indicative of what my campaign is about. It doesn't start when my announcement was made, and it doesn't end on my election day. This is about people and making sure that you are able to reclaim the power that you rightfully deserve because these seats belong to you. And it's high time that we make good on the campaign promises and actually deliver the results that you deserve. One of my favorite sayings of President Obama was, "The power lies in the hands of the average, ordinary American citizen." If we really harness that power that we possess, Not only will we be able to turn out an electorate that not only gets people who are persuadables out to vote, just like Beto did, but we will also get that person who because they think and believe, because we've shown them that we only find their homes during campaign season. It's time to reverse that course and have servant leaders who get the job done and who have a demonstrated track record of being able to show someone that in fact it will be done. That, my friends, is what we can achieve together. So I encourage you to join me on this People Power movement and go to us, visit us online at www.amandafortexas.com. If you're tired of politics and you just want people to get to work, please join our movement. We're also on social media at amandafortexas.com. That's Amanda for Texas on Twitter, Instagram, and on Facebook. Please join us. We have a table in the back for you to sign up as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Edwards. Annie, your closing statement.
I have the audacity to run for U.S. Senate because I am fed up. I am fed up with all of the different ways, creative ways, that the rich are allowed to take advantage and exploit the rest of us. And it's only getting worse. If you hear the word privatize, then if you are not the government contractor that is cashing in, you're about to get screwed. I fear that we're running out of time. This isn't an ideal time in my life and my family's life, but I genuinely am afraid that this is our last gasp chance to right the ship. And that's why I've decided to run. I want to raise where we set the bar, what we expect from our government servants. I want to, on day one, start a 411 number so that you have a direct line, a direct connection to getting things done. I tried to get a hold of Cruz and Cornyn, I can't tell you how many times, and it went nowhere, and it's so frustrating. What a radical notion that in a representative democracy you actually have somebody that you can talk to who is actually fighting for you. You contact us, and within 48 hours, you will get a human and a humane response. I am not a politician. I don't talk like a politician, and I don't think like a politician. But Texans deserve better. And we need somebody who has the moral courage to do the hard thing. I like to think that my campaign is about action-oriented empathy. And if you want to see what that looks like and you want to see where I stand on 25 issues, please go to runannierun.com. I am asking your vote and your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie. Sammy, your closing statement.
Well, I'd like to thank Indivisible for putting this together and the Texas Tribune for being here. Thank you, Patrick, for moderating the event.
We appreciate it.
So my name is Samad Hernandez, and as many of you know, I ran for U.S. Senate last year, and I ended up earning $250,000 votes on $4,000 on a very progressive campaign, and that kind of tells you what Texas is ready for, and I know what is possible in the state of Texas. And jumping into this race, I knew it was ahead of me. I knew that I would be invalidated as a candidate and dehumanized because of the amount of money I am not raising. I can tell you that in spite of all of that, our numbers in the polls are high when we are included in the poll. Unfortunately, sometimes the media excludes us because certain people make personal decisions to exclude our campaign and our candidacy out of the democratic political system. This election is about you. This election is about dismantling systemic racism, dismantling systemic poverty, addressing ecological devastation. I am proud to have been one of the founders for the Texas Poor People's Campaign, leading the charge on those issues with great civil rights leaders, great human rights leaders that have taught me a thing or two about fighting for you in the spirit, fighting for you like I would fight for myself, like I fight for my children every day. Living in the belly of the beast of the petrochemical industry, I know how important it is and how to fight the system from within. Living in the system. living in Pasadena, which is or was the headquarters of the KKK. So winning this election, not only just because I'm a daughter of immigrants, but I'm also an indigenous woman who happens to live in a city that was dominated by the white supremacy, dominated by the fossil fuel industry, and defeating John Cornyn, that would be poetic justice, extreme poetic justice. But I can tell you that this election is not going to be decided by the media. This is going to be decided by you. And hopefully, those people who have decided to exclude our campaign from the democratic process will be brave enough to actually participate in what is called democracy and hold debates and televise them and invite every single candidate who had the courage enough to file their names on the damn ballot. Because every single person in this room deserves to know where their candidates stand, who they are, that day, every single damn time that they're on this stage. That's what you deserve. And if you elect me, I swear to God, that I'm not going to give you nuanced remarks on how I compromised for industry. That's not what I'm going to be elected for. I'm going to be elected to represent you, not to give you half-assed answers, not to give you excuses, not to sit there and say, well, this is the best I can do because Republicans have the vote, so I had to vote with Republicans. No, hell no. You don't deserve that. You deserve a hell of a lot better. So going forward, I invite you to join me. Go to Texas.com so we can get bitch ass Cornyn out of office. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina, for our final closing statement. Christina?
Hi everyone, thank you so much for being here tonight. My name is Christina Sensun Ramirez. Everyone asks me the origin of Sensun, and I want you all to know that it's more Mexican than any Garcia or Lopez. It's an indigenous name of Mexico, and we were the only group not defeated by the Aztecs, so you know I come from good lineage and I'm ready to defeat John Cornyn. So I'm running for U.S. Senate because I want a government that belongs to and serves us, the people of Texas. And I've spent a decade and a half leading and building some of our state's largest voting and civil rights organizations, bringing people together to make government work for them. From when I was 24 years old and launched my first organization to take on the construction industry, the largest employer of undocumented labor in Texas. And I passed legislation at the local and state level that raised wages and made jobs safer for hundreds of thousands of Texans in this state. From taking on the crisis of student debt, recently in the Texas legislature, and taking on also climate change. I know how to pass progressive policies, especially in a tough political climate, but I also know how to get people out to vote that we need to win in Texas. So I was asked to run by the folks that ran Beto O'Rourke's Senate campaign. I am proud that yesterday 24 of his staff, including Jody Casey, his Senate campaign manager, endorsed me yesterday because they know that I'm the best bet to win in Texas after their experience. I helped lead an initiative in 2018 that brought together the youth civic engagement organizations in this state that registered 1 in 5 voters in Texas in 2018 and got nearly 70% of them out to vote. That's how we saw the 500% increase in the youth vote in this state. And I also wrote Beto O'Rourke's Senate campaign plan about how to get out the Latino vote, and that's how we saw the 250% increase in the Latino vote in this state. 2 constituencies we absolutely need to win. But apart from knowing how to win on the issues and get out voters that we need to win in this state, I also know what's best about Texas. And what's best about Texas is our diversity. And I know this because I live this. My mom's the oldest of 9 kids from a very poor farm working family in southern Mexico. And my dad's a white American hippie that met my mom while traveling through Mexico in the 70s. My white grandpa used to say we were purebred Irish Mexican Americans, if you've ever seen them. And as a kid growing up, I got to know that there wasn't anything purebred about that, but I got to see and learn something that a lot of other people don't.
Christina, can you please wrap up?
My Mexican and Anglo families had a lot more in common than we had at odds. That it doesn't matter where you come from, who you love, who you pray to, or the color of your skin. That we all just want the same things for our children, for them to be safe, to be healthy, and to go to great schools and become everything that they dream of. And I think every single Texas family can have that, and every single Texas family deserves that, and that's why I'm running for U.S. Senate. You can find out more about me and my campaign and how we're going to flip Texas in 2020 at ChristinaFordTexas.com or follow us at Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christina. Give a round of applause to all the candidates for being here tonight.